Last winter, we camped on the Gulf Coast to escape the cold. This year, full-time RVers are finding that even the South isn't safe anymore. Is winter RVing doomed? Is full-time RVing becoming unsustainable for younger travelers? Will we have to rethink how we spend winters going forward? As I'm making this video, we've recently moved into a house. We actually spent the last 2 years on the road full-time RVing, and our normal pattern as we went across the country was during the summers, we would kind of head out west. We hit Yellowstone, at one point we hit the Southwest, and then we would come up to the Pacific Northwest for the summer because we really liked it up here. We were kind of checking it out. And at the time we had been living in Dallas and we were looking for another place to settle down full time. So it was not only our legal domicile in Texas, the place where we would get our mail sent with our mail service and register our vehicles and whatnot, it was also where we had doctors, vets, dentists, that sort of thing. And of course, lots of good friends. So every 6 months or so, like clockwork, we would swivel back through the Dallas-Fort Worth area to get our teeth cleaned, do health checkups, take the kitty into the vet. So for us, that path made sense. We had some great times heading out east. We were able to go to New Orleans during Carnival season, party season. We were able to go and explore the entire Gulf Coast, find some really good hidden gems, some cheap panhandle RV parks, and also spend 2 weeks living at Walt Disney World. I will say that Florida was the most challenging part of that trip, and there's a reason for that. A lot of the RV parks in Florida are 55 plus only, and unfortunately, I am in my 40s, as is Justin, my husband, so we're not eligible to stay at those parks. And as a result, and due to the high demand of camping in Florida, especially in the warmer areas of Florida, the parks that do accept people who are under 55, your KOAs, your other private campgrounds, they are very expensive. And in fact, the most expensive campground that we stayed at outside of Disney was a park in Sarasota that had a restaurant on site. We only stayed there for about a week because we wanted to visit with our friends who lived in Tampa and Clearwater. But yeah, it was pricey for what it was. It was lovely and I really liked the park ownership, but the prices are unbelievable. I'm delivering this video from the Pacific Northwest in the house we just bought. You know, the PNW has more mild winters than where I grew up, which was rural Maine, and I also lived for many years in Cleveland with my husband, which is where we met. The winters here are much milder than what I'm used to. PNW gets a reputation for being very gloomy, but it actually hasn't been very gloomy this year. Maybe we're just having a good one, but my friends back in Dallas have seen snow twice. And as of this filming, it has not snowed here this winter. That might change. We have some in the weather forecast for next week, but that tells you a lot that Dallas has seen 2 snowstorms, very, very rare. And there was snow in New Orleans that was making the news. It was really funny because last year, one of the places that we wintered was along the Panhandle on the Forgotten Coast, this nice town called Port St. Joe. And when we went, it was tropical and sunny and beachy and lovely. And this year, it was snow. They had snow there. And unfortunately, this kind of extreme weather seems to be happening more frequently, not less frequently. Hot and cold swings in either direction. And this is complicating plans for RVers who are seeking those warmer climates, especially because, as I mentioned, the peak RVing wintering spots, Florida and Arizona principally, but also parts of Texas to a certain extent, are reserved for 55 plus RVers. And part of this is because the federal government does offer subsidies and assistance to people who offer affordable housing to people over 55, and those RV parks count. So you can't really blame them, but if you are not of traditional retirement age and you are looking for a safe place to winter, things are getting hairier. I mean, after all, boondocking during the winter is another level of difficulty. So what does this all mean? Well, it means rising costs for campgrounds in those higher demand areas. Like I was saying, the KOAs in Florida are extremely expensive, extremely hard to book. There are also limited boondocking options in winter-friendly climates. You know, because they do exist, it's a little harder to boondock, especially during the winter. And then you have people who are driven there to do that, especially with the fact that RVing has become a lot more popular since 2019, 2020. People need a place to go. And because of that, there's increased competition and even wait lists for coveted spots in campgrounds that are open to people who aren't 55 plus. You know, there's this kind of situation happening where there's a larger trend where the climate instability and RVing's increased popularity since 2019 and 2020 are changing the landscape. What has once been a cheap hobby that was very flexible has become increasingly more expensive. And frankly, the rising costs of rent are not helping, and the climate is coming in and making it worse. So we have a lot of ways that we prepared for colder weather. One thing that we always did when we were traveling is, even if we weren't in an area that was expected to get a hard freeze, it's no guarantee that a pattern won't happen. We once got snow, surprise snow, at Halloween in New Mexico. What we do is we always would carry a heated hose with us. Our RV is equipped with tank heaters. If you have them, great. And we also try to keep our propane topped off. I mean, it's great if you have space heaters and hookups, but if you can't find a place that has that, or if you have power outages, which happen to us in different places, the propane is a good backup. Another big thing is literally just keeping plenty of blankets on board, even if you're trying to stay in warmer climates. The nice thing about the blankets is they're also cushioning material for traveling day. You can always wrap things up. They're pretty easy to stow, to smush down. We have these vacuum seal bags. You know, we have a little stick vac that we would use to clean the RV as well, but we would have these compression sacks, essentially these big vacuum, and you put the vacuum attachment on, would suck it down, so you could have giant blankets that went down to nothing, or you could use them as well to wrap things on travel day. Having a lot of blankets, even if you're intending to stay in places that are warmer. But yeah, it's becoming harder and harder, and I'm sure if you're out there living that full-time RV life that you've seen similar things as well. So it really makes you wonder, is full-time RVing becoming unsustainable for younger travelers? Will we have to rethink how we spend winters going forward, or do you see this as a fluke? Something that's going to get better? Or will that demand for new RV parks and hookups and all that spring up? You know, let me know. I've been really soul searching and wondering about this. For us in the PNW, we have kind of the rainy and dry season. It does get colder. Rainy season starts the end of October, beginning of November, and it lasts quite a while. And what we noticed, we had kind of a transitional month while we were house hunting before we got into the house, but when we started looking more actively, we had started to notice there was like tons of condensation inside the RV. There's a little bit of mold on the window. We were able to get it off, we were able to clean it and everything, but that was as big of a challenge as anything. Even with the milder winters here, even with the relatively mild winters in the Pacific Northwest, the condensation is a killer too. Have you faced challenges trying to winter in your RV? Where do you think we can go next winter? Are we gonna have to hit Mexico? I've seen some videos of people doing that, and that has pros and cons. I know the roads aren't always the best, and sometimes cattle will cross the road, believe it or not. Usually you have to have somebody spotting for potholes, and sometimes it can be tough getting parts, but if you're adventurous enough and you've done it, let me know. While it's getting harder to figure out winter escapes, I believe that the RV community is resilient enough to adapt. So let's figure this out together. Anyway, it was great talking to you as always. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.